Incompetence was top of the charts in a week that saw yet another round of executive changes in government. And out goes Justin Muturi after months of public friction with his boss, President William Ruto. Dissatisfied with the government's handling of the abductions issue, Muturi took the bull by the horns, refusing to resign and instead choosing to wait for the obvious. It came to pass, and first-term Member of Parliament Geoffrey Ruku was picked from Muturi's neighborhood to fill the gap. We are in Siakago, Embu County. Meanwhile, political donations keep flowing in, but the church is grudgingly holding the collection basket. So, money or the cross? We explore the line separating Jesus from Caesar. Jamila's memo is looking for an address in the remote interior of Turkana County, and a deputy county commissioner is the intended addressee. Sam Sense attempts to find sense in the next deputy governor of Meru County, serving as a panelist at the IEBC selection panel. And staying on the IEBC selection panel, Kaikai's kicker warns against the risk of the biblical last becoming the first. Bonya's Bone picks tons of concrete with the frustrating question of official corruption in Kenya. And on My Take, it is a contest between the dictionary meaning of incompetence and the political meaning of incompetence in Kenya. And on this incompetent note, the gang is here.
Naona mnapata wasiwasi kama tujenge tusijenge. Let me tell you, tutamuaibisha shetani. Shetani hawezi kutuzuia kujenga nchi yetu ama kujenga makanisa zetu. Shetani na watu wake wanaweza kukasirika wakitaka, lakini tutajenga kanisa.
We will get back to matters of heaven and hell and the people that reside in those respective parts of the universe, is it? In a moment. But first, welcome to News Gang. The hashtag is News Gang at Citizen TV Kenya. 22422 is our SMS line, and Sam is looking out for your text messages. And on that note, let's begin the show, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get to, Satan, let's come back to the things that happened this week. Finally, Hayawi. After months of back and forth between two gentlemen in this country, one a cabinet secretary, another a president, it was a case of who would blink first, and the president did blink first. Not only did he send J.B. Muturi, cabinet secretary for, or should I now say former cabinet secretary for public service packing, he also then made another round of changes in his cabinet. Jamila, you've been on the watch, counting just how many changes we have seen in the last 2.5 years or so. Yeah. What's the tally now?
We're at number 5.
Number 5?
Yes.
Not 6, 5?
No, we're at number 5.
Okay.
Yeah, because we are not counting the initial list that he announced when he was, he became president.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was, after that, now we've had 5.
Okay, but then that means there have been 6 announcements.
Yes, there have been 6 announcements in total.
5 changes.
5 changes. And,
wow.
And it was expected, I think, with the tensions between J.B. Muturi, former Speaker, former Attorney General, and now former CS of Public Service, and former Member of Parliament for Siakago at some point. Tensions between me and the President actually had been evident for months. He was even here on JKL a few weeks back and talking about how he's not even attended cabinet meetings because of particular issues he wanted cabinet to discuss. Of course, the main one is now the abductions that have been going on in the country since after the Gen Z protest last year. And his son, Leslie, was among those who had been abducted. And he talked about how he had to go talk to the president himself to have his son released. And he was talking about how there are those parents who do not have the president's ear to actually ask him to intervene on their behalf. So it started there. And he says he clearly told the president he's not going to attend cabinet meetings until that issue is on the table. But then now I think the other shoe dropped during the iftar that the president hosted at State House a couple of days back, where he termed Justin Muturi, when he was Attorney General, as incompetent when he talked about the Waqf issue and a law that was supposed to have been passed. It's a Muslim Endowment Fund that had been proposed by Muslim leaders, and Justin Muturi, who was at the time Attorney General, was supposed to have really facilitated it. But he talked about how he did his bit until the point where he was moved to the public service and the whole thing stopped. But then now, if he was as competent as the president said he was, he should have been moved completely out, not made the CS for public service. Our colleague Emmanuel To actually termed this very well when he spoke about the incompetence train yesterday. And he said, for President Ruto's administration, it is like a train with compartments. So what happens is, instead of throwing out those who have been fired, you don't throw them out of the train, you put them into the next compartment in the train.
Yes.
That's how he described it. Because almost everyone ambaye amefutwa kazi, amepewa soft landing mahali. I know we'll talk a bit more about that.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two of them. I think former CS for Education, Mashogu, is still out somewhere.
Yeah.
Former Agriculture CS, Mithika Linturi, is still somewhere.
Yes. But Jamila, keep hope alive.
Yeah. Oh, keep hope alive.
There are so many parastatals in this country. Also, I'm sure their advice would be much needed at some point. We will get to that. But can we track the history of just how it got to this? We did understand that at least 2 cabinet meetings, or rather JB Muturi skipped 2 cabinet meetings, the first one in January, I believe, the one that was held in Kakamega, and then another. Here he was, right here on JKL, speaking about why he chose not to attend those meetings.
I have written and sought to be excused from attending cabinet meetings until or unless the agenda of abductions in the country and extrajudicial killings is formally tabled before cabinet through a cabinet memorandum, so that the cabinet, as the highest decision-making body, is able to express itself and give the country the way forward with regard to those two issues of abductions and extrajudicial killings.
Yeah, but, you know, that was not all. Clearly, he had a lot on his mind and a lot to get off his chest. So he talks about the issues that he felt were not addressed. I'd like us to also listen to some of the issues that he had mentioned regarding his time in cabinet, his time, in fact, as Attorney General, the advice that he'd given regarding the Aror, Kimwarer and other dams. Because, yes, he obviously seemed to be giving his side of the story when he was on JKL. This was, by the way, guys, not more than a month ago, right?
Less than a month ago.
Yeah, so things were boiling nicely. Let's watch this.
Is that the government had paid on all the 3 of them. I don't know how much had been paid for each. Yeah. I can't remember the figures, but the figures came to something between 38 and 40 billion, the equivalent.
Okay.
Kenya shillings.
Paid to the Italian contractors.
To the Italian contractors. One of them, according to the report by the team, had already gone bankrupt. And the other members of the consortium were unwilling to join that same contractor because the same one who we are trying to woo to come back. Yeah. So trips were made to Italy. Ayub, let me say openly here, I refuse to participate.
I mean, the signs were there. Finally, before we continue with the conversation, when he was asked about, I mean, he clearly had a lot to say. He had many issues. He refused to be part of all of that. So why not resign? This is what he had to say.
For me, it would be an act of cowardice. Yeah. I would be... People wonder, what kind of person is this one who sees a problem, doesn't speak about it, and merely walks away.
And so he left the president with no choice. Sam.
Yeah, that interview was on 5th of March in this same studio.
Yeah. This month?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just about 3 weeks. Yeah. And of course, many expected that shortly after that, the president would take action. But looks like he was waiting his time. And eventually, with that comment about incompetence, it was all clear for everyone to see of what actions that would befall the former is it okay to say former?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The former cabinet secretary and also former Attorney General, and also former speaker. Now,
remember the communication was silent. He didn't say what happened to him.
Isn't that reminiscent of the Moi era?
Yes.
That's how you would define
nimemfuta kazi.
So we just have to make an assumption that it was dropped.
Okay. Well, already there's a new name to replace him in the name of Geoffrey Ruku, who also comes from the Democratic Party of Kenya. So here is a man that when you hear him describing the challenges that he was facing as Attorney General, and the reason why he would not even attend to the matters of Arol, Kimorel, and Itare dams, you see someone who was seeing certain things that he felt, I cannot append my signature here, I cannot give my voice to such an arrangement. Now, the only loss for Kenyans is that you do not know what the details are, but you recall particularly that question of Arol, Kimorel dam. After negotiations were held, there was a concession between the government of Kenya and the officials from Italy to go ahead, withdraw all cases that were challenging some of the procurement that had gone on. In fact, those matters that Kenya had been taken to court were actually withdrawn, but of course at a cost. There are certain matters that were happening also in the country that are also sort of concluded in a particular manner, so no longer in court. But the fact remains that on the ground, you do not have construction going on. Arol and Kimorel dams are not under construction. You recall also that there were questions, excuse me, even from the previous administration under President Uhuru Kenyatta on what happened to, what do you call it, the feasibility study that is not existent for one of the dams that was supposed to be constructed. And that's why there was cancellation of one of the projects, and the other one was supposed to be reduced in as far as how far it was supposed to go. Now, when that deal was re-agreed upon by the two governments, and then you're not seeing activity, it is one of those issues. The other question that the former Attorney General, at least that's certain, J.B. Muturi was speaking about even when he came to studios about the Adani deals. And he was saying of how he was in a situation where, yes, him as Attorney General, he does not facilitate the process of signing the deals. But there are certain questions that he had. He raised questions of the officials that were behind it, in as far as I think State House advisors that were also part of the team helping the procurement process. He was saying these things. What I wonder is, when he expressed himself while in cabinet as Attorney General, what happened at those particular times? You also remember that he spoke about several questions of the health laws and the challenges that went to court. The Finance Act of 2023 that eventually was taken to court, and the affordable housing levy was defeated by the High Court, and how he now claimed that the designing of the affordable housing bill, or an act right now as you speak, he was behind it as an Attorney General. So you'll see that he sort of tried to distance himself from some of the most controversial decisions. He was sort of saying that the Office of the Attorney General was not consulted, was not involved in some of those controversial issues, even saying that people that were drafting the laws were not from his office. So when the president says incompetent, it's only him and J.B. Muturi who know how incompetent. Is it because you're not dancing to the music, or is it because you don't want to get involved in some of these major government decisions that are being taken, or is it about justifying your boss? I don't know if we'll ever get answers to those questions.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, Yvonne, being the government's Attorney General makes you the chief legal advisor to the president.
Yeah.
And that also makes you the chief secret keeper of the government. And I think J.B. Muturi bottled a lot And for him to come to a station such as this and say all those things he was saying,
Yeah.
JB was a perfect student of President Ruto's deputy presidency tenure. He knew he had options to resign, but he waited to be shown the door. Because there are two things here. One, if you fire me, then I go out with that popularity.
Yeah.
And I keep you on the edge. You constantly want to check on me, fearing what is it that I will say, having known all these secrets. And just like Sam says, the interview that JB had here was quite a revelation of everything that as a population we've always questioned about certain laws and certain legal moves that were made by this administration. And clearly, JB washed his hands and said, hey, not me, not my monkey.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what is it that I see was happening here? As the custodian of the government's official secrets, I want to believe that there are certain things that JB did not want his name or signature to be appended on. So they got into a situation whereby the president where he sits believes, if I let this guy go, then he will spill the beans. If I don't, then I look like a coward.
Yeah.
So it was a wait and see kind of, everyone watching each other's move. And it happened so long, and I think for the president to finally act, he realized probably that the anger that came with the Gen Z movement had started to thaw. So even in Siakago, where JB comes from, probably he realized if we now decide this guy goes, then there'll not be that public anger that will accompany his exit from the cabinet.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect timing for the president, and replacing him with somebody right from his village, right from his party, because Ruku is the only DP elected member of parliament. Then he would say, well, what wrong did I do?
Yeah.
I simply removed from the left pocket and placed
put
in the right pocket.
Yeah.
So it's still your son, it's still your own, and therefore nothing changes.
But politics is an interesting game, ladies and gentlemen. You know, in August, President Ruto was in Embu.
Yes.
And he sang JB's praises.
Oh, yes.
I want us to listen to that. This was on the 7th of August last year. President William Ruto was in Embu, and he was thanking the people for... I can't...
Say after
Kanyuambora.
Just say,
Can we allow JB Muturi to say it?
Oh, no. Yes. Mbona niseme na mate na wino upo. Let's listen to the president. Incidentally, praising him, both him and now former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua.
Watu wa Kanyuambora, mimi nawashukuru pia kwa kunipatia Justin Muturi, nafanya kazi na yeye. Sasa amenisukumia kazi ya sheria pale kwa Attorney General. Sasa nimempatia kazi ya kusimamia wafanyikazi wote wa serikali. Awe ananisaidia kupanga wafanyikazi wa serikali.
Watu wa Kanyuambora muko sawa sawa? Nimelete salamu ya mtoto wenu, Mheshimiwa Justin Bindan Muturi. Mumepokea? Na Mheshimiwa Rais, kwa niaba ya watu ya Embu nataka nikushukuru kwa kumkumbuka mtoto wetu Mheshimiwa Justin Bindan Muturi na kumrudisha katika baraza la mawaziri.
But then months later, the person mwenye alimsukumia kazi pale sheria was now incompetent.
I had a problem with the AG who was there. He was fairly incompetent, but I now have a very competent lady.
So, ladies and gentlemen, between August last year, how many months are those?
Na March.
You're the one who can
About
count.
7 months.
In 7 months, he became incompetent? Linus, how does this work?
Well, it's possible if you're doing appraisals that are frequent. 7 months is enough time to know whether...
But this is appraisal of a previous role that he held.
Yes.
Not the current one he holds.
But look, it depends on what the president wanted to convey here. And what we've seen for the last, has it been a year? And especially with the handling of this Muturi issue, the president appears to prefer to have both worlds, the good and the bad. I mean, and this typically is informing the way he conducts changes, which is why he'd fire a cabinet secretary and make them an advisor. So remember, when cabinet secretaries are sworn in, they swear to advise the president.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's a more senior level of an advisor. But then you go to another position and then you should be able to advise again. Yeah. I think this is a case of the president having both worlds, where you want to get rid of something, but still don't want to lose something. So it's a very indecisive place to be. And I'm wondering what informs this. It could be the political complexities of the situation he finds himself in. Remember, J.B. Muturi becomes the second highest ranking politician from the Mount Kenya region that has gone head-to-head with the president. Remember, the first battle was between the president and his former deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, who was impeached. And now it's to the Mount Kenya East. And I just want us to listen to Muturi himself. No, actually, Kimani Ichung'wah, when he was speaking about the impending sacking of J.B. Muturi, it's been long in coming, predicted even by non-weather people.
Reasons why Justin Muturi was removed as Attorney General around the time of the demonstrations in June of last year. There are reasons probably why Justin Muturi knows he's probably on his way out. It is him who has made those allegations. That is a matter under active investigations.
You suggest the minister is lying and on his way out, but the president hasn't denied any of this happened.
I don't suggest. I tell you emphatically, the minister has reasons to lie. Okay. Emphatically. He has reasons to lie.
And he's on his way out?
He definitely knows it.
Right, and at some point later on, Justin Muturi did speak about the impending sacking, and I think it was right here on this studio when he responded to basically making his thoughts known about the prospect of being fired why he was fired as Attorney General.
I'm not too sure on whose behalf he speaks, because I doubt that he even speaks for the people of Kikuyu constituency. But if Kimani Ichung'wah believes that I was receiving bribes, the best thing for him to do is go and report to the relevant authorities for action to be taken against me. Remember, as Attorney General, I was principal legal advisor to government. And I've written many advisories on many subjects in this country. I'm surprised that he has not been able to produce any evidence of any advisory that he can argue that this is skewed. It shows that maybe there's something I was expecting.
Now, the president made it clear where his problem with J.B. Muturi lies, and he said that was in the office of the Attorney General. And indeed, when J.B. Muturi was on JKL here in this studio, he spoke about the the process of being fired as AG. Let's listen to this.
If the president actually mentioned to me that I would want to remove you, I would just have told him, no, you know what? I don't have an issue. I would just do a resignation. It's a better way, because I remember asking, now do I go tell him? Do people think that I am incompetent? Am I of unsound mind, or am I a bankrupt, or which provision of the Constitution have I breached, or which law have I violated, both local or international?
Okay.
So But finally, the matter was resolved that way, that I had to, the best thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the process that eventually ended up being followed, which is the resignation route. Because the president had mistakenly removed the Attorney General alongside other cabinet secretaries, and the process of removing the Attorney General is slightly different. Maybe we can listen to the president talking about dismissing the cabinet and the Attorney General. Wonderful.
Upon reflection, listening keenly to what the people of Kenya have said, and after a holistic appraisal of the performance of my cabinet and its achievements and challenges, I have today decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya, except the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, and of course, the Office of the Deputy President.
Right, he had included the Office of the Attorney General, but the Constitution does provide for a different process when it comes to the removal of the Attorney General, as explained by J.B. Muturi. And he did tell us here in this studio that he had to offer a resignation so that you don't embarrass the president by having a court process to challenge the process of removal of the Attorney General. That would have been a bit embarrassing. But the issue is, it remains a big question. What is it really that separated the two? Now, we can only analyze with the information that we have. And one that really keeps coming up, as explained by my colleagues here, is the issue of Aror Kimarer. The duty of an Attorney General is to act as the legal advisor of the president. There is a former Attorney General, I will not mention his name, who famously said his role was to tell the president, this is the law, but what do you want? Perhaps did J.B. Muturi fail to ask the president what he wants when it comes to the question of Aror Kimarer? And let's face it, Aror Kimarer is one of the country's greatest mysteries. A case that suddenly collapses just after the election. More than 20 witnesses could not be called, and all the suspects who had participated, including a former Treasury official who had lost his job on account of the same, was found to have no case to answer. So, Aror Kimarer, could this be the read that J.B. Muturi will be holding and saying, find out what is it about Aror Kimarer?
And it looks like at the heart of it, it's if advice was given, whether it was followed, because it would seem that even in laying off his cabinet, the president didn't consult the Attorney General, else he would have told him, boss, if you want to fire me, this is how you get to do it. And so it's only after, a bit of a misstep that then I find this case very interesting, that J.B. Muturi actually corrects the president and says, you fired me, but you did it wrong.
Fire me this
fix
way.
that, fire me this way.
Fire me right.
So at the heart of this, it looks like the issue is about advice and whether advice was given. J.B. Muturi made his case about advice that he did give and was ignored. Now it seems like including even his own firing and, all of this that happens back and forth, and the question of competence or lack thereof. But I'd like us to move because to the future, because there's a new nominee from that seat. Like you said, JB, J. Bonya, not
the fired one.
Not the fired one. No, you're still good. I think we're still here. But like you said, took from the right and gave with the left. Let's listen to the new nominee, who, by the way, when he received the nomination, before we get to how he received the nomination, he was actually busy in his own constituency preparing for the president's tour there next week. And this is what he said on how they will receive the president. This is apparently before he heard the news.
Nasunguka hiyo narudi siendi huku tukipangana na hii wananchi wa Mbeere North tukingojea rais hamu na hamu. We will welcome him kama shujaa wa taifa letu ya Kenya na shangwe na nderemo.
And it would seem that Shangwe and Nderemo was just a few minutes away, because a few minutes after making that statement, he then received the news of his nomination to cabinet.
First reaction, I was not sure whether those are true news, whether that is the case. So I was not aware at all that such a nomination can happen today.
Are there any coincidences in life, particularly in politics? I mean, what are the odds that Geoffrey Ruku is in his constituency? This is also JB's constituency. He's actually JB's MP.
DP.
He was there with the deputy president, inspecting projects that the president is going to tour next week. And then, oh my God.
Do you know the name of the project that,
is that me?
that they were inspecting? It's called Kanyombora Irrigation Scheme.
Wow. Okay.
In Kanyombora village, the same village that the president praised the former Attorney General in Kanyombora. And this is the leader, the party leader of DP, or former. Because now when he joined cabinet, he stepped down.
Right,
but also the only member of parliament from DP, not deputy president. There are a lot of DPs from the party to the deputy president himself.
Democratic Party.
Yes, Democratic Party.
Okay.
Yeah. So interestingly, so all that is going on. Of course, Geoffrey Ruku, who is a person that we've had an opportunity to speak to on several occasions, defending the government, talking about the various programs that the government is instituting, never mind how much information is available, has also been very vocal lately on the transition from the Kenya Kwanza administration to the broad-based administration, including at that event on the signing of the MOU between ODM and UDA. And in that event, you recall that even some members of, or most members of UDA, elected members of UDA, were not in attendance. He was present. And shortly after that, that's when you saw the letter from the Democratic Party withdrawing from the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And I recall that shortly after that, we were trying to get him to attend one of our shows. And shortly after, the former Attorney General spoke on JKL, the Member of Parliament for Mbeere North was no longer available to attend the show, which was supposed to be Thursday morning. So obviously, it is no coincidence that he would be on the ground on Saturday. The information we have is that Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki was obviously heading to the Mount Kenya region, had a stopover at Kanyombora to inspect that project, but also to relay some information to the Member of Parliament for Mbeere North. And you can see from the excitement that you're seeing there. So obviously, he must have been expecting some of such changes to happen. What he may not have known is the time of when that announcement would be made. But also, you're reflecting on a transition from JB Muturi to Geoffrey Ruku, of a man, in this case, the former Attorney General, of all those things that he has claimed to have advised the president, even giving advice that there are certain members who should not be sitting in cabinet. You're talking about the likes of the former Secretary General of UDA party, Cleophas Malala, who had been asked to also be sitting in cabinet. And he gave advice against that decision. But eventually you recall that the president went ahead to institute that decision and invite them to cabinet. But shortly after, there was a matter that was taken to court stopping them from sitting in cabinet. And when he was here, Justin Muturi said that including the State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed sits in that cabinet. So there might be a case of, I also don't believe that the firing of Attorney General Justin Muturi was actually a mistake. It was intended to be a mistake. so that after that communication has gone out, then you have a situation that the only thing you can do is to step down because you cannot be unwanted. Then you force your way back into the office. So this must have been a tactic that was used to cause such kind of a change. But eventually, of course, you know what happened. So as we move on, a cabinet secretary, Geoffrey Ruku, it would be very interesting to see the sort of transition because Geoffrey Ruku is coming in at a time that the public service ministry has been expanded because now it has an extra state department by the name special program. So how he fashions himself, of course, first he has to appear before Parliament to make a case for himself. You don't expect a lot of defeat, knowing that the House is now whipped along the broad-based lines. We'll be waiting to see how he performs and how he can execute the role to finally have a competent cabinet secretary in that.
Yeah, and it'll also be interesting to see the by-election.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In
so what happens? Does JB Muturi
field a candidate or something?
Or run himself, where it's dare you, okay, let's see how popular you are, let's see you run for that very seat. I mean, it's all interesting.
Because his party did win, DP.
Yes.
And Ruku was, I think, the only member of parliament.
Right. So to Rudy kwa ground, let's see, you know, who has the bigger, those ones.
But as we continue, other than, of course, Ruku, there was also another change that was announced. But just one thing I need to say about Ruku is that he's actually been, I think it's a reward for his consistency in trying to tetei serikali. There are two bills that Ruku is known for.
When Sam does his thing,
on Daybreak.
Consistency in messaging, yes.
Consistent. There are two bills that he's remembered for, if I can say. There's one called the Assembly and Demonstrations Bill of 2024, which sought to impose stricter regulations on public protests by granting police greater control. I remember that bill caused quite a reaction. And there was another one in 2023, sponsored an anti-corruption amendment bill seeking to decriminalize some of the procurement offences. This bill was described by stakeholders at the time as dangerous and a backward step in the fight against corruption. But I think one of the things that we'll remember Ruku for is he was behind the mobilization of Mount Kenya East leaders, behind Professor Kithure Kindiki at the time before the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua commenced. I remember when they were speaking, Mount Kenya East leaders, when they were declaring that they were mature enough to chart their own way, he was among those who spoke and said that they were unanimously agreed that the link between them, Mount Kenya East, and the government was Kithure Kindiki. So Jama anakuwa rewarded for loyalty yake na hizo vitu amefanya. But then we had another change which was announced also yesterday.
Yeah, or did you want to?
Yeah, you want to add something?
Just a little one on Ruku, because it is so true that one of the things that he has done is to demonstrate unquestionable loyalty. He's answered very difficult questions. Even in our set here, sometimes picking questions that are not really easy, whether you're talking about the finance bill last year and the political reactions. He was there to stand for the president. But something else about the pattern. You can see that the president also took care of political management. You are firing Muturi, but keep it as close as possible to where that seat used to be.
Same pin.
Yeah, same pin.
Same pin location.
It's an old thing in Kenyan politics. It reminded me of the time President Moi fired the then powerful Kipkalia Kones, Minister of State in the office of the President. And when he fired him, he replaced him with John Koech, who is just in the within the neighborhood. The political logic always is about managing the political local sentiments. If the locals there were holding that seat as their own, so don't keep the flag too far. Even though the story was very interesting, the driver left Kipkalia Kones in his farm and delivered the flag and the car to the Molo police station. But a lot has changed. JB Muturi can actually sit on the set here and wait for that moment. Those days, it used to be a bit more rough than this.
Instant, yes. Let's take a break. When we come back, money on the cross. That's what we want to talk about here. The church is at it again with some strict regulations that are going out there. There's been other changes, by the way. Aden Duale is now in Ministry of Health. They've swapped with Dr. Deborah Mlongo Baraza, who's now in environment, just so you know. And then there's also...
Aden Duale's health. And
what did I
there's
say?
a new...
Did I say Aden Duale's health? I said that, no?
And there's the new minister.
And there's the new, yes.
Yes.
For environment. And there's one for
no,
gender.
there's the one for gender.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mrs. Cheptumo. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, we will see how that goes. But today, of course, Deborah Mlongo was planting trees. Yeah, I mean, the shift is quite fast. Let's take a break. When we come back, Money or the Cross. We'll be talking about churches and donations and accountability. And finally, we can address the issue of Satan.